some of the things that I'd briefly like to talk about is lifestyle. No matter what I do in the makeup space, it's not going to help if you have, you're going to down 60 kilo shots and go out to work the next day. Makeup can't help that. Makeup cannot help, makeup cannot help for clothing choices. Makeup cannot help, chapped fingernails, that kind of, you're going to have to groom yourself. It's only part of the whole package. So those are not areas that I can really emphasize and talk about because they're not my area of expertise. Clothing, what's appropriate, what's not, that really is not my area. Sometime I think Shraddha might choose to bring maybe a stylist on board and talk about what business attire and I think it would make sense because it is part of the whole package. You go out there, you're in your workplace. And I have done enough media to know that with web conferencing at this point of time, I think it becomes important for professionals to really know about TV makeup, just a little, because you're out there and sometimes now interviews are happening in a way that you're in front of a computer screen and what you want to project is your best image. And you can get away with a few things like false eyelashes, which you wouldn't typically do in your everyday workplace. You wouldn't wear false eyelashes and go out there, but I think with web conferencing you can have just a little bit of play where you can do that kind of thing. You can use a little more blush. You can actually use contouring foundation. You can use, to make the nose look a little slimmer, cheeks go away, jowls just disappear. You can do that with web conferencing. You can do that with Skype, with Google Doc. But when you go out there for an interview, you want to still keep it very subtle. It has to look professional. So here we are, and thank you, Julia, for volunteering. Can we,
sure,
the glasses, okay. So foundation. This is possibly the most important aspect of makeup. I come from a country in Asia where it's very important to look white. That has been the universal model for looking beautiful, has been to look very fair. So what happens is you have these white faces which look very washed and pasty. Even on a skin that's as tan as me, I can look really gray if I put on like pink and white kind of foundation. I think what one really has to realize is you have to be true to your color when you do foundation. It's very important. I think all of Asia suffers from this. Everyone wants to look substantially fairer than their skin color. So I would say that you have to go out there and test a product in sunlight. That would be the best light to test foundation in. You would go, maybe take your little tester, take a little dab of it and go outside the store because the lights are very ambient in stores. So when you're checking out foundation color, it's really important for you to go outside into sunlight and see that it doesn't look any different than your own skin color. You don't want to test on arms. Usually arms are more tan than the rest of your face may be less tan because you use sunblock and stuff on the face and not on your arms. Face and not on your arms. So Julia here, we're gonna start her with. See, her skin is relatively flawless, so there's not really a whole lot one really needs to do. You don't really have to, go on with. You don't have to put on a ton of foundation. But I have a palette, so I work with palettes. I don't use the liquid foundation. But whatever you have at home, I was asked this question about people having makeup in their own house, and they didn't want to kind of throw it out, and they wanted to use what they had. If it works for you, it's fine. This is just, I need to go through the whole gamut of colors as far as, the faces that I work with. I go from African American to very white foundation needs. So I need to work with a palette. Again, testing is very important. You test typically on the jawline right here. You kind of make sure that it blends right there. As far as coverage goes, there's just a few things. A few freckles and some imperfections, but I wouldn't do foundation on the whole face. I'm going to open this to questions and answers. Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
So, okay, you started to touch on it. So do you have to put foundation all over?
It's just to make sure that your face is more like a canvas that you're working with, which is pretty flawless. Whatever you use to build makeup up, with, your foundation is important because it creates a little bit of a barrier and it blends better because there's already a layer of something that the next thing is working on. You don't have to, you can use loose powder. I just had, I'm sorry,
Nicole.
Yeah. Nicole just mentioned that she doesn't use foundation at all. And that's fine too. I mean, if you have the skin tone to kind of, but if you kind of use a blusher on top of nothing, it'll blend in a slightly splotchy way only because the oil glands on your face will interact differently. So if you have a foundation on, also primer. This is like an important aspect. So if you're going to get your whole face on, like if you're going to get the foundation, the blush, the eyes, everything, it's important at this point of time to invest in a primer. I actually love the Maybelline. I don't buy expensive product if I don't have to. This is like an $8, really cheap primer out there. It's just so that your face just has like a clean canvas to work with. If you don't want to use foundation, just use a primer. It will be fine. It will work just as well. So I'm gonna.
Now, the stuff that you're doing now, is it for video conferencing or photography or
It's for
live camera?
So different aspects of. I would say this is just everyday makeup. This is like what you would go out for the interview and that kind of makeup. If you want to talk more about photography, I would think that the attaching of the false eyelashes, that would be part of what that would take care of. You really have to understand light to do photography makeup. So if the light in your home tends to be bluish, you kind of need a slightly reddish foundation. That's what TV corrective makeup is all about. So depending on how people light, I would say that for video conferencing, you would pretty much use the foundation color that would be just your usual foundation color. But unless you're in a certain specific kind of light, you want to have the balancing. So if you just get like a color wheel, you'd know what the opposite effect is. So if there's blue, then you go with a slightly reddish tinge so that it balances the blue light. If you have yellow, then you go with a mauve. I mean, it's kind of strange as it sounds if there are just undertones in a certain. For example, if a person has very deep dark circles and they're very dark, it's because of bluish capillaries that sit in the back of the very fine skin. And to balance that, you really need red. So it's really strange that if you have under eyes and you're going to put red there, but it really does the balancing act. So it's really understanding it from that aspect that, and that has entirely to do with TV and photography makeup. Okay, so primer. And please ask questions like Siobhan was, and that's fine. I was thinking of doing a Q&A later, but since I'm not this talking person, I kind of feel like I'm on the spot. So go ahead and, it's like ask questions, please.
If you use foundation, I've never used primer before. Can you just use foundation straight up, or
You can use foundation. See, typically we're talking about foundation in the workplace. I'm just going to go because it's, the thing with primer is, I don't know if you're noticing as I'm going along with my fingers that it's kind of mattifying the whole look. It's also giving it a little bit of a, when you go to work, you're typically talking of a work day which is 8 hours long, and foundation won't wear for that long. You're usually, getting really oily for some people that have, T-zones and all of that, and then for some people, the makeup just doesn't last. So the primer really helps with that. It kind of creates a base which lets makeup stay forever. It also goes on really even.
So, just out of curiosity, is that, there are people who put on makeup over the years and their face just tends to age a lot faster. Is there anything that you'd recommend that beneath the foundation or the primer that's used to kind of keep the skin? Because a lot of you can be applying makeup on a daily basis.
I think, so that's a myth, I think, that makeup actually spoils face. It's like saying hair product makes you lose hair or thin hair. I think it's the quality of product that you use, and also making sure that when you get back home at some point of time, you have a good cleansing routine. I don't think it has anything to do with makeup per se. The rule for foundation, for most part, is that I think if you use it on an everyday basis, I think about 6 months is a good time to turn it over and toss. And Eyeshadow is about a year. Blush is about, see, most makeup companies will tell you differently. Will say 3 months for foundation, 2 months for blush. But I'm a makeup artist. I know exactly what happens to these products. I see how they deteriorate over time. And I'm going to say for most powdered product, it's going to be about 6. For a person that's an individual that's applying, I'm going to say it's going to be 7 to 8 months for most product, other than foundation. And you can use makeup if you use it carefully and make sure. So every time, I always carry like a hand sanitizer. Try and make sure that you're always starting with less, oil build up in your hands. You're always not introducing bacteria into your makeup. So that's really important. So it's easier. So if you have liquid foundation, try and get it on like a little palette before you, instead of just, you tend to do that, right? What I'm doing with my primer right now. One tends to touch, but I'm using a hand sanitizer. I don't know how many people have it in them. So all you need to do is just bring it to a separate area like that, and then close this out. That way, your makeup will not deteriorate. So it's really important to make sure that your makeup doesn't deteriorate over time. Mascara, I'm going to say, because it's so close to the eye, closer to 2 months. You've got to turn that around a little quicker. But I see a lot of smiles and laughs. It's like, oh, no.
I won't tell you how old my makeup is.
We'll just dispose of it without comment.
So we're done priming this.
Is there a certain brand for foundation that you recommend for sensitive skin?
Okay. So there's I don't know, Lancome. I like Lancome. I also like, it depends on what colors you're really servicing. For example, I've had people come up to me and say, for Asian skin, what do you recommend? And for, different, I like Lancome because it's good product. Clinique's good product for sensitive skin. That's what that is their USP. That's what they say. It's for, it's, then there are a lot of mineral kind of, makeup brands that are out there. It's just tough to keep abreast. Every day you go to the, even to a generic like a drugstore and you see 10 new things just happened while you were sleeping. So I'm sure if you Googled it, what would come up for sensitive skin? No. The answer to that is really good. Yeah.
I have sensitive skin and I use Perez. And that's for me personally.
Really? Okay, there you go. That's an answer.
How do you spell that product?
Korres. Yes.
So, yeah, go ahead.
What exactly is in the primer? Is it tinted? Is it like a moisturizer?
So there's a ton of, oh God, talking about product, I have to tell you, if a person says primer and you Googled it, there'll be like 35 products that come up. MAC has a great primer which I use for TV. It has like a photo base, so it actually throws out light at you. That's a great product. I like Maybelline because it stays for like wedding makeup. It stays forever. And the makeup will just stay. So there's a lot out there. I don't know really what the chemical composition of the primer is, but it literally just creates a barrier between skin and the makeup. And it helps it go on more smoothly. So if you have a ton of lines on your face, a primer just seems to help that. It kind of it almost tends to Botox out the lines, really. It does that. It has a smoothing effect. So, without the needles, why not? Cheap fix, $8, I'd say go for it. You want to keep it very soft, very natural. You don't want to go very strong. Have you seen tattooed eyebrows? And what do you think? Hideous, right? No? I'm sorry. Okay, did anyone here? I gotta look. Check. It's hard. No, because look, when I was young and whatever, and I went out and got a tattoo, but the reality of it, I'm really dark, so it doesn't impact me. But as years go by, it becomes green. It was black when I started out. And then your eyebrows become green, and then they become, green and wrinkled. And it's unfortunate. It's one of those not so pretty things in life. All I'm trying trying to achieve here is a clean canvas to work with. When you're in the workplace, you really don't want to look like you did too much with it. Also, there's like this aspect of evening versus, I mean, what if there's like this work thing in the nights and you wanted to transform from work to an evening, which also involves work colleagues and stuff. So I think it's okay to do smoky eyes. I think it's fine. It's just the colors you use. I mean, typically smoky eyes would be reserved for like nights out or date nights or something. I think that if you use more brown and golden tones, you can actually get away with doing smoky eyes for the workplace. So that it would cover any such.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
With under eye circles, would I just use the same
Yes.
foundation product?
You would use a concealer that goes with the foundation. This is actually a really, like I said, it's a very high pigment palette. So I use this all over the face. So I would use it everywhere. But yes, you would use a concealer and foundation, which is how you. If you get just a sponge and you water the sponge, and then you put it on versus your hand, which will give you a very thick coverage. I think that this would water it down. So it would be literally like airbrushing your face versus having this really thick application, which is what happens with fingers because it doesn't go anywhere. With your fingers, it goes from finger to face. And with a sponge, it actually sucks in some of the color. So then, depending on whether you like how the face is turning out, you can add more to it. But I think you should probably be more natural rather than very dramatic. I think that's more appropriate, right? I think clothing-wise, everyone's saying, watch your neckline, all of those things. Tattoos need cover-up. So I'm thinking we're all tending to be more conservative, unless you're working in a high-fashion kind of place. And most places, but for most part, I think we work in pretty conservative work environments where you don't want to be too flashy, too over the top.
How long do the eyelashes stay on?
If you have good glue, then forever. I mean, for however long you take to peel them. Yeah. Again, you have to make sure that both the lash levels are kind of blended. You want to make sure that it doesn't look like there are two layers of eyelash. Open, look at me. Yeah. So there we have. Okay, so that's the highlighter that I used. Right under the brow bone, right here, you use highlighter. Usually should be a lighter color. And then open it, please.
So do you bring it down all the way to the eyeshadow?
It depends. You could do it more. So hers, I've done it like that. I brought it down to the eyeshadow. But it's what works for you. I think everyone has a different kind of face, and you've got to really experiment with lip liners. A lot of people have asked me this as to whether lip liners, the line should show versus it not show, and I don't think that's the idea of lip liners actually to contain the color, so it doesn't bleed and feather. It has to not show. I mean, that's the look that I'm going for the office. I think it could show in some fashion situations, but I don't think it should. So start with a primer. Stay with the outline. Okay, I know Nicole's not a big fan of foundation, so that cuts my 10 minutes to maybe white. I think, yeah, I don't really need to do a lot in terms of, we're not going for coverage with her because we're talking about everyday look for her, specific to her, and she doesn't do that.
When you put on the mascara, are you putting it on top and bottom?
You could do. Depends on, yeah. I didn't for her, but yeah, you could.
Would you fill mine in anywhere?
I would set them. I would definitely set them
Okay.
with mascara.
Okay.
I would with the gel
Okay.
mascara. I wouldn't do too much in ways of color or fill, but it just gives it a
Polish.
yeah. She's good to go. That's it. That's 3 minutes. So how relevant is it? Do you think this is relevant to going out there and
Very much so.
yeah?
I mean, just here, like, you've made both of them look more awake. And it's the end of the day, and they probably won't work the full day. So for an important meeting, I think that's pretty good. Ready? Yeah. Ready? Yeah.
Should have had this event on a Friday.
Yeah, and then you'd have me do like 19 faces later and I'd be white. Everyone's going out and I'm going home. Just
We're taking out for drinks too.
We can plan a happy hour after.
I'm glad it was Carol out here who asked for smoky eyes because her eyes are like a canvas. I can work on them. They're stunning lid space to work with. So she's asked, this is a great
Works
eye
so good.
to demo on. So, does anyone do a version of smoky eye? Is anyone familiar? You do? Okay.
Like a general color, and I put a lot of it at the bottom near the lash line,
Mm-hmm.
and then I use the blending brush to just bring that color up
Mm-hmm.
towards the rest of her to like crease into the back.
Okay.
I'm not very good at it because it's a lot
It's
of
just
blending.
translucent powder. Okay. Yeah.
And my friend taught me to just like keep blending and then do like a windshield wiper kind of effect, and then just like
I like all
blend,
these
blend, blend.
terminology. Windshield wiper effect. I love it. Okay, so we're doing smoky eyes for the workplace. So this is going to be like a more muted, maybe just a night out after work, and you want to go out with work colleagues for drinks or something. You don't want it to be too crazy or too over the top, but at the same time, it's a balance of nice looking and
There's
smoky.
always going to be, right?
Gray? No.
Yeah.
So smoky can be in shades of brown, which is fabulous, which is the smoky eye that I'm showing you. So it's not black. It's not black and gray and that kind of smoky. And I think depending on different skin tones, like she's dark skinned like I am. I mean, her skin is colors very similar to mine. So she can go away with a little warmer, darker, smoky eye, whereas very light skinned people will need to use like softer versions of it for the workplace especially. So shades of taupe and brown and still smoke it up. I could go crazy with color with her because she's, darker. So here we go. We start with a base color all over the lid. It's a brown and I'm just using it. What that does basically is it gives you a base color to play with. So what happens is that color blends well with color. So when you use, if you went flat on the skin with nothing in there and started to try to blend a smoky eye in, it won't blend as well unless there's already some powder sitting underneath. So you always start with a base, like a neutral, natural brown. That's what I started. And there are kits out there, luckily for people that don't want to figure out what color to buy and in individual things. Target and all the drugstores. I mean, in Walgreens, you'll see kits now made by L'Oreal or those generic companies which will say smoky eye kit. Now you go to Macy's, on every cosmetic floor, there's like a kit which will contain all the colors for smoky eye. You still go with like a lighter highlight, which is right on top. You know, there's no necessary order in which you work the smoky eye, and then this is how I like to do smoky eyes. Is I like to work on wet colors. So all my eyeshadow colors when I'm doing smoky eyes are usually wet. So I use water, and you can use your eyeshadow like that. I think it's an okay thing to do. It helps. It controls it more. How many of you have had like situations where there's been dark colored eyeshadow powder falling onto your cheek? I mean, that happens a lot with trying to work with darker colors. So it's just easier.
And once, like on the outside, are you doing it any further out off the eyelid?
Well, it's not supposed to really go out. Depending on if you want like a lot of drama, you could go out a little bit. But I'm not sure we're really going for drama. We're going for subtle. We're trying to pull back. It's Shu Amura. I like that. I do like